Good evening, folks. Welcome to Carrow Road. Norwich City have been beaten 3-2 here tonight by Sheffield Wednesday. I get to do these verdicts after games. Sometimes they're difficult. Sometimes you click start and you don't really know where you're going to go or what you're going to say. And other nights it feels like it's organic and you can speak and it can sort of flow off the tongue. I've seen the sublime, I've seen the ridiculous, and everything in between in the 5 years that I've been doing this job, and obviously in the last 2 or 3 where I've been able to do these verdicts after every game. And um, often the immediacy of them can make them by nature quite reactionary, quite emotional. And I always try and do my best to say what I've seen and try to put things in context and try to look at things with balance, and try not to be too reactionary or to go in two-footed where maybe in a day or two and I'll sleep it off, I'll regret it. I feel quite calm tonight, and that's helpful, because I think a lot of what we're going to talk about from a Norwich City perspective isn't calm. That was shambolic. That was absolutely shambolic. I think in my, as I say, in my 5 years of doing this job, I've seen Norwich get battered. I've seen them get thrashed. I've seen them lose games comprehensively. I've seen them throw away leads more times this season than perhaps any other. Um, the way they performed in the second half, the inability from anybody, coach, players, to recognise that it was like the Titanic was playing out, and the ship was going. Everyone was having a good time. Drinks were flowing. Everyone was happy, and there was this massive iceberg ahead that people could see. You could see it was there. You could see it was coming. And I felt like, and there'll probably be fans inside the Carrow Road crowd that felt like this as well. It felt like nobody inside the scene, nobody inside the ship could see what was ahead, could see what was happening, and just did absolutely nothing to prevent the boat from smashing in to what was an immovable object that seemed inevitable, even before the first goal. And to get to a stage where it's the second goal before substitutions are made. That's really poor tonight, because you could see it 5 minutes after the second half where Norwich were passive. They were sitting in a shape. It was too easy for Sheffield Wednesday to gain territory, to begin to pile on pressure, to begin to ask questions. And this Norwich team, as they have done all season, when there is some adversity, where there is something problematic, when there is some challenge ahead, they fold like a pack of cards. That soft underbelly, it's too nice, it's too soft, it's too predictable. You look at the first goal, I mean, that is an omnishambles, an absolute omnishambles. To be conceded in the way that it was from a set piece, the lad to be unmarked, first and foremost. I'm not even sure he's tried to score, second. I think he's tried to connect, and he's leaning back, and he does very well to get the header down into the ground. But for that to bounce into the ground, to trickle past Cordoba, to trickle past Reyes into the bottom corner is incredible. It's incredibly bad. And from there, the whole thing spiraled. And within 12 minutes, Norwich had gone from a position where they were leading 2-0 to they were behind 3-2. The second goal, pinball, again, really bad defending. We can talk about mentality and softness and all of that type of stuff. But on the surface, it's just some really stupid, really bad footballing decisions and an inability to roll your sleeves up and to ride things out. There's no intelligence in the team, no game intelligence in the team. When you need to break things up, when you need to stop the momentum and stop the flow of a game, this group seems incapable, seems unable to do it. And it seems to be a group of players and a coach who, when everything is in their favour, look really good, have swagger, play well, score some excellent goals. We saw that in the first half tonight. But as soon as there is some resistance, some challenge, some adversity, even in its mildest form, the whole thing crumbles. The whole thing falls apart, and that's got to be concerned, because we're not talking about a team that is 2 months into a season, that's 10 games into a season. We're 10 months into a season. They've conceded 29, 30 points from winning positions. That's not bad luck. That's a trend that is just unacceptable, completely unacceptable, and it's cost them this season. It is the reason why they are not going to do anything greater than be a mid-table team this season. And it's not because of anyone else, it's because of themselves. It's because of their ability to shoot themselves in the foot, to wrestle and let teams wrestle games that they should never wrestle out of their grasp and out of their control. And it's just bad, I'm afraid. It's just bad. And to be in a position where you can watch it all unfold tonight, and it's that saying, isn't it? It's like seeing a car crash unfold in slow motion, because it's infuriating. You watch the first half of this Norwich City team, And you watch, to be honest, really big portions of this season. They play well, they're dominant, they score really good goals. Both the goals they scored tonight were terrifically well worked. They're intricate, they're complicated, they require a really high technical level and talent. And then the goals they concede are crap, to be honest, and they are preventable and they're soft and they don't have to give teams a lot to concede. You look on Friday night, one long throw into their box, there's the slightest bit of resistance, the slightest bit of challenge, the slightest bit of adversity. A player heads it against another player and it falls straight to an Oxford player. You look at it tonight: a corner, a free header, and a soft free header. We're not talking about a bullet header that he's powered into the back of the net. We're talking about the softest of headers that he's headed into the ground, that has lost pace as it's bounced up and has trickled into the bottom corner of the net. Bad. You look at the second goal, pinball. They have 3 or 4 chances to clear the ball, and there's just not that. It's almost desperate. There's not that clarity, that composure, that ability to even put your foot through a ball and whack it clear. And all you do when you fail to make that clearance and the next clearance, you build pressure, you build anxiety, but you build opportunity for opposition teams. And you could see it, Sheffield Wednesday, 2-0 down. There's just never a sense that the game is finished, that the game is over. This is not a Norwich City team that can manage games. They either go on and they score 3 or 4 and they look good, but even then, we saw it with Stoke. There are bad concessions. There are bad defensive decisions. There are just erratic, really like mind-bogglingly terrible decisions in possession, out of possession. And we're not talking always about the young players either. We're talking about experienced professionals that, by and large, some of them have been really good for Norwich this season, but in key moments just make really bad errors. And you just tear your hair out, because when Norwich are good, they don't look a million miles away and they look like a good side. And I've said this a few times this season. When they're bad, they look a million miles away. And what does that mean? It probably means in reality they're somewhere in the middle. And tonight's a sore one. It's a bad one. It's the worst one of the season. And I don't really understand Johannes Oftorup's post-match, because he was asked about the second half and he said that it was passive, and that they thought about making substitutions. You just cannot be that indecisive. I mean, you could see the way it was going. Norwich retreated. They were passive in a block. I don't know if it's complacency. I don't know what you can attribute it to, whether it was, because clearly you can see that they're not being told to do that. They're not being told to passively revert into a defensive shape and allow opposition territory, but they do it, and they do it after they score goals. They do it in real positions of comfort often, and just that regression is so alarming. It's really hard to put your finger on, because what you do is, when you concede that territory, when you go into a 4-5-1 passive shape and you don't press and you don't, you're not very good really at limiting spaces and being passive and sitting in a low block and managing games and taking sort of bits on the chin. They're not good at that. And yet they seem to do it. And whether it is a mental fragility, whether it is a football ideology point, it needs to stop and it needs to end, and they need to get to the bottom of it. Because to be in these positions, I mean, you look at the last 3 games, Blackburn, they take the lead in the 90th minute. They can't win that game. Friday night, they have 70% of more than 77% possession. They're so dominant. They don't create enough, but they're so dominant. That's not a game that they should be dropping points in, and yet they do. Tonight, 2-0 up, really good position, played some really good football in that first half, and were very good for the most part. And yet throw it away, and it is a pattern. It's a pattern across the season. We can go back to Cardiff, the late concessions there. We can go to Blackburn here in the first home game where they conceded late. We can go to the Burnley game where, albeit a very good team, they threw it away because of a lapse of concentration. Sunderland away where they threw it away, red card, and it just capitulates. And it's themselves often shooting themselves in the foot. And it's not opposition teams playing through them. It's not opposition teams creating good chances. It's really bad goals that they concede. I mean, the third goal is a long ball into the right channel, a ball across and a tap in. It's simplistic. 2 free passes they're in. Norwich take, a lot of passes to generate what opposition teams generate against them. And it's so easy to come here to Carrow Road and to score goals, because, if you're patient, if you, I don't think Sheffield Wednesday did do this in the first half. They came to press and go toe-to-toe with Norwich. But if you retreat and you're, you sit in a low block and you wait for set pieces, you can cause carnage. Sheffield Wednesday had, 3 corners tonight? scored from 2 of them. Norwich had 9, did nothing. And that encapsulates the issue. It's, we can talk about projects and we can talk about time and all of those elements, but the reality is you cannot play that second half as badly as Norwich City did. And they could not have played it worse. They could not have played it worse from the position they were in. And I don't know if it was a procession and they thought that they'd had the game won and they felt it was going to be another one of those Carrow Road nights where they went on to score 3 or to score 4. But there was just absolutely nothing done from outside, from the dugout, from the coach, from Yanisov Torup, and there was nothing done in the pitch at all to grab that situation. And I don't want to be disrespectful to Jakob Sorensen. It's not the way that it's intended to come across. But to make the first sub at 2-2 and for Jakob Sorensen to be one of them and to be swapping midfielders, I'm not really sure he's reading the game well enough. I can understand what they were trying to do in terms of wrestling control, and they wanted to make that change at 2-1. They hesitated when the goal went in. 2 minutes later, it's 2-2. Then they do make that change. Yeah, I mean, everyone could see inside Carrow Road the way that it was heading, even after the half-time whistle. And we can look at the Borja Sainz one where he didn't play Emi Marcondes through. Fine, and that's a valid argument. And maybe Emi Marcondes gets played through, he scores that goal, they win 3-0. But I think it's too simplistic to boil it down to that, because we can talk about mentality, and absolutely that's a valid criticism of Norwich City tonight. But we're talking about bad footballing decisions as well, and an inability to ride any sort of adversity or to take any sort of punch on the chin. They take a punch and they're down to the canvas, and it just feels like teams know that they don't have to work hard when they come here. They don't have to construct amazing tactical plans. Albeit Sheffield Wednesday did very well at, I think, changing momentum and the tactical changes that Danny Royal made, and he's a very good coach at this level. To suffocate Norwich to get territory back. But again, I think even after the first goal, I thought they were too passive in their defensive shape. The ball goes up the pitch. They're not aggressive enough in their positioning to get up the pitch, to squeeze, to put pressure on the opposition. They invite it to themselves. They invite pressure on themselves. They allow teams to whip up momentum and to create rhythm. And they've got no ability and no tools and no players really that feel capable of breaking that. And that is the problem when they get in this spiral, and we saw it over 12 minutes. It just feels inevitable, and it feels unavoidable, and it feels like it's set to happen. And it felt like that from 2-0, let alone from 2-1, from 2-2. And when you concede the first, then maybe you try and break the game up a little bit. You try and just manage things, manage time. You put the ball in the areas. You try and stop the game and create some stoppages, and you try and break it up and hold that momentum. There's none of that. It's too nice, it's too soft, and it's too easy for opposition teams. And if I was an opposition team coming to Carrow Road tonight, well, any night really, I'd be delighted by what I have to face, to be honest, because you can soak up pressure, you can have 30% of the ball, 40% of the ball, and you can come away with 3 points, or you can come away with a point. And that's exactly what Oxford and Sheffield Wednesday have done. It's what Preston and Derby did, and it's 1 win in 5 here, and it's not good enough. And you can say it's a young group, and you can say that's mitigation, but it's not a young group that's not been in this position before, and it's not even a team that's not been in this position before in the last 2 or 3 games. And the inability to learn and to grow from it, both players and coach and coaching team, is concerning. It's really concerning. It's a really bad trend, and it's one that needs to stop and needs to be halted. And it doesn't matter how it's done or where it's done. And maybe that is Norwich get themselves into a lead and they go to a back 3 and they try and change something. There's just it felt so reactive tonight, all of it, and that is the issue I have with it. There was no proactivity between 45 and the first goal to alter the pattern of events, and that, I think, ultimately is the frustration here this evening, because it could have panned out so differently even at 2-1. And as soon as that well, even before I think the first goal it went in is difficult. And you look at games and the amount of work that Norwich City have to put in. They scored 2 unbelievable goals tonight, really, really of top class standard at this level. The goals they concede at a League One level, League Two level, and even that probably is too high. Sunday League level, some of the goals they concede. And You can be as good as you like at the top end of the pitch. You can have all the possession in the world. You can be as dominant as you want in games. But if you're that soft, if you're that meek, if you've got that soft and underbelly when there's even the slightest bit of pressure applied, it's a hand to the shoulder really that opposition teams are putting on them, and they're just falling and they're collapsing, and it's bad. It's bad, and it's not a new trend because it happened last season. It was what 20. I think it's about 56 points dropped now from winning position since the start of last season. That is considerably the most in the championship, and I think you have to ask questions about that. And even though it's a different coach and in the most part a different group of players, is it a cultural thing? Is it something that needs to be changed and altered? I'm not sure, and look, it's easy, I think, and I did think Johannes was right when he said this. After games like this, people talk about mentality, and as I've said over the 16 minutes that I've been going here, I think, excuse me, I think there is some just cause and reasoning behind those criticisms mentally, but there are footballing points as well. There are footballing criticisms and footballing reasons that Norwich City did not win this game tonight from a position of real comfort, and it's a shame because after the first half, I should be talking about the brilliant goals that they scored, the way that they played, the way that they dominated, the midfield rotations, the balance, how good Antti Sienats was. You know how well that front three worked in the first half. Borja Sainz getting back to goal scoring ways. We should be talking about all of this stuff, and yet all of that is rendered redundant because they cannot manage a game of football for half an hour, for 12 minutes really. And for us, you can be as good as you like. You can have all of the positive data points that they have. You can be, as you can make as much progress as you like. If you don't shift that, if you don't fix that, the whole thing is irrelevant, and they won't make progress if this does not change, if this does not shift. And for the last three games where you lead at Blackburn, you're leading Oxford, you're leading here tonight, all of those should have ended up in 9 points. Norwich City would be they'd be in the top six now if they had 9 points. And they don't, and now their season is, if not on life support, then it's dead and beyond resuscitation from this point. I think in terms of the playoffs. So a really grim night, a really frustrating night. You could sense the frustration, and I don't blame any of them at all at the final whistle for their reaction. It was completely warranted. I think if I was a season ticket holder, I'd have booed them off as well. Because it's just inexcusable that collapse in the second half, and it's so frustrating because, as I've said, there's been so many times this season, and the first half was one of them where I watched this Norwich team, and I think, yes, you can see what they're doing. They're a good team to watch. They score brilliant goals. They're attractive to watch, and there are times you watch them and you pull your hair out. And as I said, those two extremes usually are somewhere in the middle, and I think none of us can say with any sort of real definitiveness what way this is going to go. But the reality is, if they cannot buck this trend and they cannot change this trend, going into next season, we've got 9 games left of this one. It's done now. I think it's about performances and trying to end the season on a bit of a high. If they cannot shake this going into next season, those frustrations, those groans are going to become something greater than that. And the shambles of tonight needs to be. And to be honest, I don't know how Blackburn wasn't, how Oxford wasn't, how Derby wasn't, how Preston wasn't, how Cardiff wasn't, how Blackburn wasn't earlier on in the season. It needs to be a wake-up call, and it needs to be something that we now see tangible evidence that is being changed, because it cannot go on like this. They cannot go on dropping points and self-sabotaging themselves in the way that they are, because if they do that, this is going to go nowhere. And as I said, it's not like we're 2-3 months into the season. We're 7 months into the season, and this is not a trend that has improved at all this season. Lots of things have, and we've said that, and I've said that on these. There have been performances where I think Norwich have played well. The first half was one of those, but you cannot play well in bursts and concede the level of goals that they're conceding, and that is the thing for Norwich City tonight. I'm sorry that's a little bit bleak. I'm sorry it's a little bit ranty and rambly, but it's how I feel. And as I said at the start of this, I try and reflect what I've seen and my mood in these, and hopefully that's done that for you. We'll have plenty if you can stomach it, and I wouldn't blame you if you switched off and went to bed and forgot all about it, because I plan to do similar when I get home. But there's plenty more reaction analysis at pinken.com. And don't worry, we've just got a long drive to Bristol on Friday night now, which I'm ecstatic for. April, by the way, trips to Plymouth, Middlesbrough, Burnley. Good night.